The way that women in Nigeria were socialized is that your identity is tied to marriage. You essentially grew up aspiring to marriage. So your aspirational goals for life was marriage. It was like you come out, you go to school, at end point, marriage. We were not socialized to have a middle ground, to have a middle living ground, how you're living like a young adult, going through life, having career. It wasn't, well, I don't know about other places. It's possible that maybe in the Western Nigeria, because I know Western Nigerian ladies did have socializations where there's a middle adulthood ground where you're working as a young woman and all of that. But I know that in the Eastern side, even the school is like you're doing the school for the husband's house. You're round up after youth service, just round up quickly so that you enter into a man's house. So marriage is a big deal to us, right? We really want to make it work. We find our identity because of our society in marriage, which is why a lot of times when the marriage doesn't work out and you come out, wahala, there's a lot of mental adjusting that you have to do, because now this thing that it seemed like this was what they made you to believe that you needed to aspire to, it now has not worked. So outside of it, you then need to figure out, so what next? I know that personally for me, it felt like for a year or a few, there was just a period of being in limbo, of just trying to figure out, okay, so what next from here? And I've had several other experiences, because there was also a time when my children were taken from me earlier this year, and that's something I don't know if I really want to talk about it later at some point. But yeah, my children were taken away from me deceitfully, under deception. The person came from like, oh, let me have the children, and then took children. And so there was a period of me having to do a whole lot of activities, going to the police, going to court for a period of like a week. But in that week, I stayed in limbo of not knowing if my children were going to be back, or if I was now going to be a parent who did not have to live with their children. And I've never been without my children, so it was not something that I was thinking about. So in that moment of not having my children and not knowing what the future would hold, whether I would then be the parents who they come to visit over the weekend and on holidays, I had to also look into my life and be like, so Judy, what is your life about? You're not a wife. Let's say you don't have because now it's like your life is busy. I've just dropped them off from school, I'm now going to work. It's like your life is busy. Let's say that side is not there, where you don't have to do school run, where you don't have to do this thing day in, day out. What next? How would you live your life? This was very difficult. I now understood what women say when they say things like, oh, empty nesters, or so how it felt when my children moved out of the house. It's something that you never thought about. And then I had to wake up every day. I had to still go to work, but it was different. It was quiet. And even at the time, the person didn't even allow me to speak to the kids on the phone. And when I would speak to them on the phone, I noticed that they were upset. They didn't want to talk to me. They were acting as if I was a monster. And I'm like, 1 week. What could anyone have possibly told my children in 1 week to make them be so withdrawn? They don't want to talk to me anymore. Meanwhile, these children have been with me for 3 years, still loving the other person, not having, because I've never told them anything. So it was just that period of just being scared of, God, I hope my children's minds have not been destroyed. Because that's the thing with when you're in situations like this, you need to be praying over your children, praying over their minds, because unfortunately people who manipulate, that's what they do, and they don't care who it is that they're doing this to. So anyway, in that period of time, I had to really think about, what is my life about? And I feel like I worked that out with God, and I got to a place where I was like, okay, you know what, even if my children are not with me, life is going to happen. I'm just going to continue to live my life. I'm going to do what God has called me to do. I'll go to work, I'll come back, I'll continue to attend church, serve in any way that God is asking me to, show up in any way. Maybe even this thing now, maybe that would have even been something I would have probably continued pursuing my business. But it's just me sort of thinking ahead of, just what if we go to court and the court says this is how it's going to be? Because the person went ahead and tried to put them into schools, even though that wasn't working, because I was writing to the admissions team in that town and telling them, look, this is where my children are, this is where that hospital is, this is where. So it was just me doing all of those things. And eventually we went to court, and the court gave whatever verdict that they had to give. But the point I'm saying is that I feel like our identities are tied to these things, and it's very difficult in the event that this thing is removed from your life. It's difficult for a woman to kind of come back. It's like you're finding yourself, and I wish that this self that you're finding, that you found it before. I feel like if you knew yourself before, if you had a period of time of just living as a young adult, not just coming out of your parents' house and going to a husband's house, but living as a young adult, paying your own bills, knowing how it is to pay rent, I didn't know certain things. I just used to bring part of my salary, but I didn't even know how to pay your rent and how to pay water bills. And even when I came out and I said trying to figure out these things, they were looking at you like, I don't understand, you don't know how to do these things. And it felt shameful that as an adult, almost nearing 40 with 3 children, you don't know where to pay the water bill, but you've been working, you've been giving your own side towards the family, but you just don't know how, because you just put everything on another person because you feel like it's not your duty. And yeah, it's cute to be doing that, but I guess when life happens and push comes to shove, you realize that actually it's quite irresponsible to not know these things. And I feel like these are things that young adults need to be able to experience, even as a girl, child, of course, as a man. We need to be able to have that period in our lives where we live by ourselves, you do your own normal life, so that in the event that things happen, you're not such a greenhorn, you don't know where to start. Hey God, where will I start? You don't know how to do rent, you don't know how, it's like you don't know how to do so many things. If it's removed, how do I even start from? And I feel like that's really something that we need to encourage as a society, just for women to be fully balanced, to live. Don't pause your life and you're waiting for a man. Then before, learn how to actually exist as a normal person. But anyway, I trust Gen Alpha and I trust Gen Z, like they're doing it. I'm so impressed. I see more Gen Z people doing career, taking their time to then meet someone and move on and find a husband. I feel like that's the better way to go about it. Just wanted to say that. Bye. Have a good day.